Lance Allred, the very first deaf NBA player, author, and motivational speaker. Thank you so much for being part of Three Questions.
Thanks for having me, Bob.
As a young Mexican-American boy growing up in a polygamous commune in Montana, did you ever have any idea what you would wind up doing with your life and where you would wind up in terms of basketball and motivational speaking and all of that?
Heavens no, let's just say that, to be blunt. The world I grew up in this Allred group, I mean, it was very intense, religiously speaking. Like, God was everywhere 24/7. You grew up with a very strong martyrdom complex that you're going to have to die for your religious beliefs. That's the kind of culture I grew up in. It was that intense as a kid. And I also had a story embedded in me early on that God had made me deaf as a form of punishment from a Sunday school teacher, and all sorts of warped things. And so I had this inherent belief deep down in the heart, or the medulla oblongata, whatever you want to call it, that I had to do something amazing with my life to earn love. And when my family broke away from polygamy, I was confused and lost and broken, because my idea that I had, well, I have to ascend and be a spiritual leader like my father is for me to have any value. But when my father blew the whistle on child abuse and money laundering, we went into hiding for 6 months, and then I lost all my cousins who had been my best friends, and like, I don't know where I belong. And so, as a way to fit in the new school, we moved to downtown Salt Lake City, went to Bryan Junior High School there. And I grew that year from 5'10" to 6'4", and just kind of fell into playing basketball. So I didn't play before then. With my hearing loss, and my inner ear imbalance was atrocious. And I was in speech therapy till I was 15, very shy and introverted as a kid. And so as a way of belonging, like, oh, I guess I'll start playing basketball. And little by little, I kept getting the feedback that I was kind of good.
Yeah, getting good.
But I also had the deep story that I had to do something amazing with my life to earn love. And you don't have to grow up in polygamy to have that story. I think a lot of us in our culture are taught that you have to do something truly alpha for a woman to love you, for you to have value. And so that was also part of the driving force, the fear that I wasn't good enough. But many other factors. I loved the game, sure. I wanted to make money doing it. And that's what kept me going, and the belief also that I know I can help a lot of other people if I do it. And so, gosh, looking back on my life, if you'd asked me when I was 7, 8 years old, if you thought this is how my life would turn out, heavens no. No.
As the very first legally deaf NBA player, you've had to overcome all kinds of challenges, ones that we may never even know, and ones that you're probably still discovering. What has been the most difficult challenge for you to overcome?
The greatest challenge, I tell anyone, the greatest challenge of a disability is the limitations that everyone around you and eventually yourself begin to believe are true. And people told my parents when I was a young boy that, oh, Lance is going to have a very simple life. He's not going to be very successful. But my mom said, no, I'm going to give him every opportunity he can. My mom made me go to speech therapy. She made me wear my hearing aids, and she pushed me outside my comfort zone every day. And I'm grateful she did. And so I have a high threshold for discomfort because of that. And that ability to get outside those comfort zones and the illusions that we think that are true stories. And yeah, there are other things that are challenging. I mean, if I hadn't been in speech therapy, I would have the challenge of talking like a person like lost, and I also sound like lost. And you can talk like that and everyone thinks you're stupid. Or you can talk like this and everyone thinks you're a jerk when you're not responding to them, right? It's a catch-22.
Yeah.
But then, they were on the basketball court, I couldn't play with my hearing aids in. And so I had to learn to play in a very different way, be very visually oriented, play it like a game of chess, and remember people's habits and body language, and read people's, again, the body language. If they're being too nonchalant, it means they're going to come off the screen probably. It means they're going to get the shot. So you learn to just predict people's behaviors. But the refusal to accept those limitations that have been placed on me, that has definitely been the hardest one. But I'm also a very stubborn person. And when people tell me I can't do something, spite's a great motivator for me. It's not my only motivation. But that choice of not being willing to settle for anything less than what I wanted to do with my life, hard-earned. And there are many times I've doubted myself, and my own self-doubt. People can criticize me, talk about me all they want on social media and call you names or whatnot, but I guarantee them or anybody that I have been far more critical of myself than anyone could ever be. But learning to find compassion for yourself in that journey has definitely been the hardest lesson I've had to learn.
While you were playing ball, you were not able to wear your hearing aids for several reasons,
Yes.
I guess. How did you adapt to that? I mean, you've spoken a little bit about that, but how did you adapt to not wearing hearing aids, and what did that teach you about life?
Oh, that teach me about life. Well, again, going back to comfort zones, being willing to look stupid. Everyone's afraid of failing, and I get to tell people now that failure means you're just simply stepping outside your comfort zone, that you're trying something new. Whereas the real essence of failure is when people try to stay inside their bubble, but they always want their dreams to come true too. I want my dreams to come true, but I don't want to take any risk and look stupid. And so learning how to play basketball without my hearing aids in, I was trying to when I first started playing, but I got head-butted one time and the hearing aid shattered in my ear canal, and I had to have several stitches and concussion issues. I just couldn't do it anymore. And so you had to learn to be very exposed. But when you learn to be so exposed, over time, again, your threshold for discomfort becomes very high. And you're not afraid of people seeing you bleed. You're not afraid of being vulnerable like that. And when you can truly own your vulnerability and your weakness, you become bulletproof, actually, because people don't have any leverage to blackmail you emotionally or however they would want to do so. And so learning to develop your peripheral vision, and it's amazing what the human body does when it loses a sense and how it overcompensates, and your sense of feel is sky high and your eyesight is exceptional, and so you learn to see the game peripherally, and so you never really focus on anything directly. You just kind of have lazy soft eyes when you're playing basketball.
Take it all in.
So you can see everything happening all at once, and your brain just learns to process it all very quickly. And it's pretty inspiring what that human body does in learning to compensate when it perceives a disadvantage. And being willing to also take a hit, because I couldn't hear my hearing teammates when they were telling me that a screen was coming my way, because I had the advantage of being the biggest guy in the court as a center, so my back was underneath the hoop, so I could see the entire court and tell my teammates if a screen was coming their way. It was my job to communicate. I didn't have to worry about anyone really communicating with me. And still, though, a lot of times I got blindsided, hit extremely hard in the back and things I just couldn't hear coming my way, and you get knocked down a lot. And it's the choice. The daily choice of choosing to get back up every single time you get knocked down. And so I get to go and talk to people about several things, but that choice, when people try to put a magic wand, how to make people have grit, is a choice.
You've had a whole lifetime to think about this question, and that is, why are people cruel to people who are different?
Fear. If there's one thing I've learned in my travels all around the world for 10 years playing basketball on every continent except for Antarctica, still going to try to find a way to get there someday. Basketball camp or something. Maybe we should do something. But fear. And I talk to corporations all around the world on my things that I call principles of perseverance. And one of them I talk about is compassion. And compassion actually protects you. Yet in our culture of hyper-masculinity, we think compassion makes us a doormat. No, it doesn't. I dealt with severe bullying as a kid, especially in Utah, with the hearing loss, and I was the biggest kid in the entire elementary school, and my last name was Allred. And people knew that was synonymous with polygamy, and not to be totally catty, but if there's one thing a Mormon doesn't like, it's a polygamous Mormon. Because we're reminding them, wait, we don't have the perfect clean history that we want to have. Wait, you mean there is some human components to our history? It's okay to acknowledge that and accept it. But those are things I had no control over. So I was a huge target of bullying and dealt with severe depression and low self-esteem. I actually dealt with suicidal depression as a kid.
Oh, dear.
And I get to use these experiences now to talk to many schools about suicidal clusters and depression. And the thing I talk about is compassion. It got to a point where one day a flip just switched in my head. When kids would come at me and take my hearing aids out and play with them or throw them in the bushes, instead of me shrinking my size and feeling stupid or apologizing just for existing, I began to look them just square in the eye. And with compassion, I thought, what is going on in their personal life that is so bad that they would want to come after me to make me feel worthless? Maybe their dad beats them. Maybe their mom doesn't care about them. Maybe their parents have only shown them conditional love, not unconditional love. And the most fundamental truth I've learned from my travels around the world is that love is either unconditional or it's not love at all. Yet we've been taught that love is conditional, that if you do this and do this, someone will show you affection. But that's just manipulation. That's not love. And being able to express this, that when people are inflicting pain, it's because they're in pain. And so when they see someone who's different, making them uncomfortable, wait, I don't want to step outside my comfort zone. You're making me feel just slightly awkward here. That must mean that there is some, in their world, some inability to have intimacy even with themselves. And so when they see someone who's slightly different, we're all just mirrors to each other. Every relationship is just a mirror. And so when you see people who are rude to others with a disability or a gender or a skin tone, you see that they're just an emotional wall or emotional stuntedness to them, that they are just unable to even have compassion with themselves and be comfortable in their own skin and be authentic and owning who they truly are, and that they're just wearing a mask that we all have to play a role, right? And so that is the one answer I would give anybody, is that people inflict pain because they're in pain, the pain of not knowing who they truly are.
You talk about true grit and the value of true grit. At what point in your life did you decide that when you would get knocked down, you'd get back up again every time? And was there ever a time when you didn't get back up again?
Oh, it would blow people's minds how many times I've failed in my life. I have a little expression that I say when I speak to people, is that the essence of leadership is perseverance, and the essence of perseverance is grit. The essence of grit is choice. We live in a day and age now of social media with so many people trying to sell instant gratification. Listen to my podcast or look at my cheat sheet and I'll help you make $1 million next year, right? Those are all illusions. I didn't make the NBA until I was 27. That's 7 years longer than the average rookie. And 7 years of choosing to get back up every single time. Why? Because I choose to. That's the essence of grit. People are trying to mystify this word and make it as though you can put it on a stat sheet. And there are some things you can put on stat sheets, but you cannot quantify the human heart, even though we think we can. Say, oh, this kid has real heart and grit or whatever, because the stats show it. No, not really. You can't capture that. And where it comes from, I don't know. Maybe it comes from the fact that I should be dead. I shouldn't have survived my childbirth due to the RH factor. That's why I have the hearing loss. You don't think about those kind of things in the polygamist commune. When you're born in a grandmother's bedroom, my mother was a negative, I was a positive, so her body was killing me off as a parasite. And so when my mom took me out the commune to the hospital there, when I was just an infant, I wasn't moving, I was very lethargic. The local resident there was a Johns Hopkins educated resident who was an RH baby himself. He specialized in RH. So I was in an incubator for 3 weeks. And when he released me, he said, your son shouldn't be alive. His liver bilirubin titer count was off the charts. And I tell people there's only 2 reasons why I'm alive. I chose to be. And there was someone there to help me along the way. And I know we in our culture in the Rocky Mountain West love to say, oh, we're pulling ourselves up by the bootstraps. And there is some of that to my story. But there's always been someone there to help me at the right time, too. And that's part of the humility of leadership, of being able to ask for help and understand that you don't actually have all the answers. And that humility takes grit as well.
Back in the day, life was hard. Communication was slow. Earning a living was sometimes difficult. Now we live in an age where communication is instant. We have instant gratification. And in fact, we have the modern conveniences that make our lives really easy in many ways. How does true grit manifest itself now in people's lives?
True grit manifests itself now in this social media age of having the courage to be authentic, of having the courage to be vulnerable, and having the courage to see that most of social media is an illusion. I didn't have social media until after I retired from basketball because I liked my privacy. I didn't like all the fans having access to me. I wanted to have some compartmentalization there. And so when I decided I wanted to do public speaking, I guess I got to get some social media going. I got to do it for marketing purposes. And when I didn't have it when I was playing, sitting in NBA locker rooms, it would blow people's minds how many times I sat next to a teammate and watched him make a post, and then I'd watch him flip over to another app and buy likes and followers and comments. Illusions. And yet you see so many kids and even parents of kids thinking, oh, he's got to have so many likes and so many followers, otherwise he doesn't have value. That's not grit. Grit is being able to see that the ills of the world is fear. Fear that my worth is a direct reflection of how people see me. No. True grit is being able to say my worth is not attached to an outcome. That I can fail and fail and fail, and that's why I would be successful. True grit is understanding that if you set a goal, an intention out there, you can't just slap up a vision board and say the law of attraction is going to work for me. No, it's like putting down your goals and writing them and putting them above a light switch like I did. And every time I touch my light switch, you read out your goals. And then you get an intuition, a download hit that says, this is what I have to do to make this dream come true. That was at the time when I started doing that at 14, wake up for 3 years at 5 a.m. and go practice with my high school coach, Kerry Rupp at East High School before school every morning. My parents never had to wake me up. That was my passion. And knowing that it wouldn't come easy, that there are no shortcuts to something that's truly worth having. Even though, again, the social media age of everything customized instantly to our preferences has taught us that the things that are worth having should come easy. No. True grit is understanding that anything worth having takes time. And somewhere along that way, and I tell people, chase that dream, always chase the dream. Because even if you don't get there, you learn somewhere along the way that you're worth more than the dream itself. And that's true grit.
We hear a lot about belief, and whether it is in a religious idea, religious doctrine, or some kind of ideology, or just in ourselves. Where does belief come from?
Belief?
Yeah.
This is going to be fun. So I'm going to tell a little story. I remember I was flying over Japan one day, and I was coming to play for a team in Japan. And I had a thought that was so interesting to me. It was like, what is culture? What is it? And playing for all these teams around the world on every continent, every culture, you find that everyone and their mother thinks their values are the best values. And so if we're all thinking that, then they negate. And the belief, a lot of belief, not all belief, there's many types of belief, but 80% of the world, from my experience, operates in fear. Fear that we're going to die. What happens after we die? I don't know what's going to happen. So we have to have collective agreement to make us feel secure in those boundaries that are nothing more often than just comfort zones. And so belief, for many people I have learned, is the need to not only know that you're safe and you're okay, but let's add a little adrenaline on it and let that belief allow us to also believe that we're so special too, that we're more important than every other culture. Because that fear that if I am not the best, if I'm not the most important, I don't have any value. That's where a lot of belief, I think, comes from many people, not all people. But then there's 20% of the world who operate in trust, in the belief that I am a spiritual being here to have a human experience. And I'm here to learn, I'm here to grow. I'm here to have failure. I'm here to find my own formula through my own experiences, understanding that people that are selling formulas think there's a one-size-fits-all system. And if there was a one-size-fits-all system, I think we would have figured it out by now. But we all have different experiences that cause our brains to adapt and evolve and see things differently. Some people choose when they have heartbreak, and a broken heart is the most valuable thing you can have in this world.
How so? Why?
Because when you have a broken heart, there are no illusions around it protecting you to show that, oh, this is who I am, my bank account, my relationship, or my car. A broken heart is when you're at a crucial crossroads to have reflection, to say and ask, do I want to keep playing along these illusions, trying to attach my self-worth to this next outcome? Or do I want to push pause and say, I'm actually going to begin to look and see if these illusions and stories truly serve me, and if I choose to go a different path. Broken hearts always give us a crossroad point. And a lot of people choose when they have a broken heart to choose entitlement. Oh, this happened to me, so I deserve this now. Or they choose compassion. This happened to me, it's a horrible experience. And anyone else who's had something like that, I empathize with them. But also seeing other people who've had experiences that you can't relate to, but that broken heart allows you to have empathy and compassion and to say, wow, it was tough when I went through this, but they're going through that problem now. Jeez, that's hard. We do so much to try to avoid broken hearts, but broken hearts are the greatest teachers, for sure.
We talk about belief in a religious ideology, belief in ourselves. With so many things to believe in, how can we tell what is really true and believe in that?
Truth is a funny word, especially in this day and age. Everyone has their selective truths, but then there are also universal truth, Newtonian physics and whatnot, that we have to abide in. To say that, oh, well, I'm choosing my reality now, these statistical scientific facts don't work, would be like me as a basketball player saying, well, okay, they say these are the out-of-bounds lines, but they're really not, because I have my own truth. No. You still have to play within the clear parameters of what the collective truth is, and these are the rules and these are the guidelines. But where the magic is finding your own truth within these parameters. And as a basketball player, it was, okay, I can try to play like everybody else and follow along, or I can find my own magic by playing just a little bit different way within these set structures and parameters. And so truth, I would tell people, truth is when you know with clarity, being able to detach yourself from stories, from fear. If it's a fear-based reaction or a fear-based truth, a fear that says, oh my gosh, people are going to come and take my home if I don't do this and do this, it's more of a fear-based truth. Is that really true, or is a perspective truth? Truth to me is when you have been able to step into the realm of accountability, not just for your actions and behaviors, but for your thoughts. Accountability of being able to check your thoughts and ask, are the stories that are driving my reality, the stories that say I have to have this church calling or this job, then I have value and worth to the world? Are those stories necessarily true? Probably not, because they're a fear-based story. They're a story that says that there is lack. Truth, to me, has come through the word that we call clarity. And clarity is when you're able to actually take a step outside of even your own brain and all the stories that we have of your culture. And your culture, remember when I going back to the thing about Japan, I had a thought that was our culture, our brain is a hard drive, an empty computer hard drive when we're born. Sure, we have some tendencies as far as nature, but your brain is a hard drive, and the culture you're raised in is the software that's installed into your hard drive. And so I might be from Japan operating with a Microsoft software in my brain, and you're operating with a Macintosh software from your American culture, and we're looking at each other saying, what is wrong with that operating system? It's not computing at the same values as I am, so therefore it must be in an inferior operating system. Those kind of truths that allow us to believe that we're more important than another person is not a truth. It's just ego and vanity. Truth is the clarity, the understanding, okay, I am a human being on this earth, choosing to step into trust, knowing that in this space of trust, there's so much more information that can come to me when I'm not stuck in these old stories that tell me that, again, I'm more important than another person. And so I'll challenge anyone's truth. I can tell you what truth is not. Truth is not the belief that you are somehow superior to another person. That's not truth.
Mm. You talk about spending your young years in a polygamous commune in Montana. Mm-hmm. Your family left that lifestyle.
Right.
I'm curious to know, why did they leave, and how did that departure affect the rest of your life?
Oh, man. So I grew up in this polygamous commune, the Allred group, the AUB. My father was the doctrinaire and the theologian, and he was expected by many to be the next leader of this group, to inherit his father's place. Roland Allred, my grandfather, who was assassinated 4 years before I was born, never knew him, but I grew up in his vision and his dream. And so I saw my father give his entire life to this cause. My dad didn't toss a ball around with me. He wasn't that guy. My father was a historian, a theologian. So instead of him throwing baseballs around with me, he was instead answering questions about, why aren't the Russians free, Dad? Help me understand this. I was 6 years old. I wanted to understand communism. And that's the type of relationship I have with my father, and he was very much committed to the intellectual understanding of the Mormon faith, the LDS faith. And so I grew up knowing, truly, in my perception of truth, that I might have to die for my beliefs. So it was very intense.
As a polygamist?
Yeah,
yes.
As a polygamous family.
Yeah.
So it was very intense. That was the level of gravitas that was in our home. And then when my father came upon the knowledge that several leaders in our group were abusing their children and there was money laundering going on, he blew the whistle. And instead of his many brothers and sisters saying, good job, Vance, thank you, it was, how dare you rattle the paradigm? How dare you rattle our truth? How dare you make us look at our stories and question if this is really true? No, I want to hold on to my truth. And because of that, some people were very angry with my father. And luckily we were monogamous at the time, so my father, mother, and my 4 siblings and I was the baby, could just go. We went into hiding. The Salt Lake County Sheriff helped us get us out of our home. We went into hiding for about 6 months. I was 13 years old. I learned at a very early age, seeing my father's brothers and our cousins disown us very early, that, again, that love is, for most people, conditional. And also, when you grow up with such truth like that, once it's shattered, it's very difficult to ever have the gall to plant your flag in another ground and say, I have absolute truth. Because every time I've tried, I've tried, life has had a way of kicking it down and saying, no, there's more truth out there that you're not allowing to experience. And the truth I saw was many people wanted to stay inside their comfort zone, afraid from pain, afraid from hurt, again, afraid from broken hearts. So they want to hold on to that truth. And so that experience of breaking away from polygamy taught me to always question reality, always question my truth, and have the humility to accept new information, to accept feedback. I'm going to ask you a question. How many times in my 10 years do you think I had a coach, 10 years of professional basketball, do you think I had a coach ever truly apologize?
For what? What would they apologize for?
Just apologize for an error, for apologize for the behavior.
Oh my goodness, probably never.
Never is a close guess. One.
Once.
One coach.
Once.
Here's my last coach, a tiny Puerto Rican guy who had every right to have this Napoleon complex, right? Mm-hmm. But he came in mid-season after the first coach got ill. He had to leave. The new coach came in, brought in some of his own players thinking, oh, this won't mess up the chemistry. It did. Mm-hmm. And we lost 6 straight games. And when the coach released his player after that 6th game, he said, this isn't working, I have to let them go. He sat us down the next day and said, guys, I screwed up. It was my fault, I'm going to make it up to you. Hmm. Do you think that made me think he was weak?
No.
No.
Far from it.
I would have, and I still would run through a brick wall for that man. The humility of knowing that you don't have all the answers is inspiring to other people. It lets them know that you're human. And that accountability of knowing that you don't have the answers and being willing to accept feedback. 2 sides of leadership. Confidence and humility are 2 sides of the same coin. Just as arrogance and insecurity are 2 sides of the same coin. The people that can't accept any feedback. And so being able to hear feedback and question reality, that is the thing, that moment at the age of 13, which is such a pivotal age, has taught me to never be too stubborn to receive new information.
You talk about the mental gymnastics that you did while you were in the polygamous lifestyle. I mean, your family.
Oh, the TEDx talk. Did you watch that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you bet. I watched the TEDx talk.
What is your polygamy? Okay.
Yeah. You talk about the mental gymnastics that you had to go through because of the contradictory elements of polygamy.
Sure.
Okay. And it left you wondering about absolutes.
Yes.
What have you determined since then about absolutes in life?
Absolutes in life. I can give you 2 absolutes that I kind of come back to every day. Well, I'll give you 3, actually. 2 of them will be from quotes from some of my favorite people. Mark Twain, when he said, far easier to fool someone than convince them they have been fooled. And so when you see people on social media trying to show people that they're wrong and I'm right, you're never going to change anyone's mind. Yeah. But when you can show them a different way just through your actions, that's how you influence people. Do you actually walk your talk?
Right.
That's number 1. Number 2, Einstein said, as your circle of knowledge grows, so too does the circumference of darkness surrounding it. So the more you learn in life, the more you learn how little you know.
Right.
So as I've grown and I've travels have taken me all around the world, meeting so many wonderful people from different cultures of life, that I can never think, oh, just because they don't have the same beliefs as me, that somehow they're less than me? No, that was arrogance. It's not love, that's arrogance. And going to love, number 3, is that love is either unconditional or it's not love at all. That's an absolute I'll give anybody. And so when we're taught, again, to behave a certain way, then we receive love. That's not love. That's manipulation. Love is either unconditional or it's not love at all. That is the one absolute I will hold on to.
When you talk about love, you become emotional. Yeah. Why?
Because I withheld it from myself for many, many years. I thought for years as a boy growing up again, because of the hearing loss and the stories that God was angry with me, I had to do something superhuman. And then God would be proud of me. And then I remember I was shooting a free throw in front of 16,000 people. For years I had the story that I had to be the first deaf player in the NBA and then I'll be worthy of love. I didn't know how to love myself. I didn't know how to have intimacy with myself. I was shooting a free throw in front of 16,000 people, and this quiet little thought came into my head. It was louder than all the ambiance in the entire arena. And I asked, is this it? Is this the best that it gets? I don't feel any different, because my ego was happy, but my heart space, all that still felt was fear. Fear that if I miss this shot or lose this job, I won't have any value to offer the world. And it wasn't until I became a father, but also having to retire from basketball because I was going through a divorce and I didn't want to be away from my son. When you're transitioning careers and becoming a motivational speaker and you're going through a divorce and all you have is your son and you're renting a basement apartment with no 10 years of pro basketball to show for yourself, there are no more masks to hide behind. It's learning to actually be authentic with yourself and to give yourself compassion and see all these experiences and the many journeys of life, all these broken hearts, allow you to have empathy and connect and have true intimacy with others and, most importantly, with yourself. So it's hard-earned, but that's why I get emotional for it. It's a lot of gratitude through those experiences of tearing down walls and illusions.
You talk about being a leader in your own life, a leader of your own life. For regular folks who haven't played in the NBA, how do you be a leader in your own life? What does that look like?
Becoming a leader of your own life is accountability in action. In choosing to have the narrative, I can be at the whim of powers and have to do things, not obligated to do things. We're choosing to do things. I have fun with people when, I'm ordering at a restaurant. I'll say, I choose the chicken. Like, no, you're supposed to say, I will have the chicken, or I want the chicken. No, I choose the chicken. The assertive language of saying I choose, especially in our Rocky Mountain culture, is like, whoa, that's pretty bold. You don't talk like that. Yeah, I can. I choose. When you empower yourself with the accountability of choice, owning that you have a lot more choice in your life than you want to admit, is actually empowering and liberating. Understanding that when I take full ownership of my failures, I can take true ownership of my success. And I earned it, and it's mine. That's becoming a leader of your own life, knowing you earned what's truly yours. And also choosing to go back and check your stories. Asking every day, is this Lance talking, or is it my polygamist thought pattern speaking to me, telling me that I have to do this or I have no value or worth? That's a daily job. It's not like you just read a book and say, okay, suddenly I'm emotionally well, I'm healthy. No, it is daily repetition like a basketball player, shooting your free throws, the muscle memory, always keeping it sharp, always keeping it fresh. Every day checking your thoughts, saying, okay, is this really me, or is it my Mormon heritage that is making me feel anxiety if other people are upset with me because I always have to be the nice guy? No, I don't have to be the nice guy. I can be a good guy. A good guy is someone who's authentic and speaks truth. A nice guy is someone who never says how he actually feels because he's afraid of other people being angry with him. So he's actually the least honest person in the world. Being able to be a leader of your own life and step into your authentic space, owning who you truly are, is empowering for yourself and other people, even if they're upset with you at first, for changing the dynamics of the relationship, for being more authentic. They will respect you. And then some part of them will be happy that you're actually having the courage to be your authentic self. That's part of being a leader of your own life.
Where do you see yourself in 10, 15 years?
10, 15 years. I love my job. I love it. Being able to travel around the world, get paid to speak. I mean, I don't miss basketball because I still get the pregame butterflies before I go on stage. But I just get to connect with people on a deeper level. I'm not just running around putting a ball in a hoop anymore. I get to actually connect with them. And it's incredibly rewarding and incredibly fulfilling. I would still like to be doing that, but I do have the intention of becoming a lot more service-oriented, especially with youth. Working on several things, platforms and blockchains that allow for transparency with nonprofits so people know where their money is actually going. and being able to use that as a way for me to actually fund the ability to speak to schools. Because what I do now is for every corporation I speak to, I speak for a school for free if they can't afford it. That's why I'm able to charge the prices I charge. I tell them, hey, this helps me speak to other kids too. But where I want to get is where I'm able to actually not just speak to kids, but have many actions set where I can follow through and always be prevalent in their lives. They have ways to access me and feel that I actually care. That's where I want to be 10, 15 years from now, much more present in the follow-through as I travel around the world connecting with thousands and thousands of kids every year.
Well, I wish you the very best on that. Well, Lance Allred, first legally deaf player in the NBA, author and motivational speaker, thank you so much for being part of Three Questions.
This is by far the best questions I've ever had on an interview. It was mind-blowing because normally you usually have like the game is, what would you like to play with LeBron and stuff like that, but you came with the in-depth questions, so thank you. Honestly, this is truly rewarding. I'm impressed.
Thank you very much.
Yes.